Left in Kentucky, the podcast of Indivisible Northern Kentucky. And welcome to our next episode of Left in Kentucky. So happy you could join us. So good you could join us, whatever that means. This is Roberto Henriquez here and
Amy Ferguson. Nice to see you. Talk to you.
And joining us on the phone.
And Dickerson here. Hey, everybody.
Hey. So once again, Hannah's joining us by phone. I told her that she was welcome to be here in the same room with us, but I think she's just decided that she can't stand the side of us, so she can just talk to us.
I did bring gifts last time and everything. Come on.
Too funny.
I'll get there eventually.
Yay.
You know.
Oh, so February's halfway over, or is it half full?
It is exactly in the half.
Yeah. It's exactly in the halfway through. And we have, as usual, starting off with our Cow Patty Awards, one of our favorite segments. We so love this. So who wants to go first with their Cow Patties this week?
I will.
Okay, you go, Ann.
All right. So my Cow Patty Award this week goes to Representative Kim Moser. For being the only one in committee to vote no on the bill for the legalization of medical marijuana.
Wow.
And here's the thing. Representative Jason Eames is the one who filed the bill. He also filed it last year. And, this year the vote was 17-1, which is astounding. So it's got huge bipartisan support, right?
Right. This was the committee vote, right?
Her excuse for voting no is
Yes.
We need to do more research. Okay, I'm going to call BS on that for a couple of reasons. Number one, she was a nurse. She knows the research that's already out there. She knows what's going on. So, her saying, well, we need to do more research, blah, 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 is hogwash. I don't know if she just hasn't figured out a way to cash in on it yet or what the deal is, but she's definitely dragging her feet. And the latest study shows that the most recent poll found that 9 out of 10 in Kentucky are in favor of allowing the purchase and use of marijuana for medical purposes. 9 out of 10. You can only get one better than that, and that's if everybody agrees. So she isn't saying no because that's what her constituents want her to do, and I should know because I'm one of them.
Yep.
So what's her rationale? Because I don't know what she's looking for. The bill it's as minimal as it could possibly be because the bill prohibits the smoking of marijuana. It allows other
Very
forms,
narrow, yes.
like edibles, oils, pills, but you can't smoke it, right?
Right.
At least not legally. So what more does this woman need? It just makes no sense that it has that much support that she would vote no. That same poll found that also 6 out of 10 say they want it legalized for any reason, under any circumstance. We've come a long way, baby.
Yeah.
And there is no evidence whatsoever to show that. Alcohol is more dangerous.
Yep.
Alcohol has more of a problem, but because we have the bourbon industry in Kentucky, and I'm wondering how much money they put into her coffers or how hard they lobby her to get her to vote no, because they're afraid they're going to lose money if this is legalized in any form. But anyway, so I've rambled on enough. She is my grand cow patty winner for the week.
Well, I think that's a good choice.
That's a big pie.
Yeah. I don't understand how I mean, I don't really see, especially medical marijuana, how is that going to impact the bourbon industry at all? I mean, you don't see doctors prescribing bourbon, unfortunately.
Right. I mean, but that's just it. People self-medicate. When they can't get the relief that they need, they will go out and take drastic measures to relieve their pain or whatever other symptoms that they're having. And sadly, that is exactly what leads to addiction. It not only leads to opioid addiction, it also leads to alcoholism. Because people who are, afraid of opioids or other means, they know that, alcohol always chills me out or whatever, or at least it'll knock me out and make me sleep. So they will substitute that. That's what they're afraid of. They're going to lose sales. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
Yeah.
It'll be an even bigger fight to take this further. To allow for the smoking of it through medical marijuana or allow for the legalization for recreational purposes.
As soon as the politicians can get their cut, it'll be going forward. I guarantee you.
I think that has a lot of it, but there's a lot of pharmaceutical money behind blocking medical marijuana.
Well, that too. That too.
A lot of pharmaceutical money against that. So I think, but there's, like you said, like you pointed out, there's a definite increase in people who think it's a good way to move forward. I know it would definitely help our farming industry in Kentucky that has been ravaged over the past decades. So it's a good one.
Absolutely, and it helps the economy not only because of the farmers. It's going to create jobs. It's going to bring in revenue. I mean, what possible negative could you have? And if the only negative that you have is we need to do more research, I will bury you in research tomorrow that's already been done. I mean,
he's just a buzzkill. That's all.
All right, moving on. Miss Amy.
Oh, yeah. So once again, our Congressman, Mr. Thomas Massie, has earned his place as my Cow Patio Award winner. Congratulations, Mr. Massie. That's 2 weeks in a row, or 2 times in a row. And the reason I have decided to bestow it upon him this time is he has decided to designate himself as an honorary state chair of the 2020 Kentucky Trump Victory Team. Now, I have a problem with a congressman that's priority is promoting a corrupt president over serving his constituents here in District 4. I think that he's afraid, and he should be, because we're tired of his leaving his patties everywhere all over our state. So yeah, Mr. Massie, if you want to get some votes, you might want to get off that Trump train, because I think it's heading for a brick wall, and it's probably a bad choice on your part to support someone that is violating our Constitution. You're basically giving up the power of the legislative branch over to the executive.
Yeah.
And for a guy that touts the Constitution, I think that's pretty sad. So, regardless of party here, you really should do the right thing, Mr. Massie, which I know you won't. But
yeah, and that's what really gets me. It's okay, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, I think, it's no secret here that I definitely disagree with almost everything he says. But okay, take him at face value and say, okay, you're a constitutionalist. You believe in the basic tenets of the Constitution. One of the big things in the Constitution is the separation of powers, and Congress to be as a check and balance against the president. Right? That's one of their main functions. And so how do you continue to abdicate that constitutional responsibility when you keep holding up the Constitution
Right.
as the ultimate bottom line for everything you decide.
That is exactly my problem with it. Yes.
And but then
And for Trump, come on, guys, really?
Well, but here's what he's proven with his words and with this action. He's proven that everything that he's been saying since he was originally elected is complete garbage. He doesn't believe any of it because he's willing to throw it all out the door for power to get reelected. What scared him was that he has a primary this time, and the guy primarying him, the very first thing he said when he came out and announced was, I'm running for this seat because I will support, President Trump 100%, and Thomas Massey doesn't. So all of a sudden, what Thomas Massey is saying is, I have no morals, I have no convictions, I don't give a crap about the Constitution. Now I got to save my job because I want the power, so I'm going to bend over backwards to support Donald Trump so you guys don't vote in this other guy over me.
Yep.
It's just disgusting.
It's like a bathtub full of beans.
Yeah, he needs to be carrying a handkerchief permanently because he's always got drool on his chin now. I mean, it's just gross.
Bathtub full of beans. All righty.
That's the theme.
Okay. And I'm really sure I probably don't want to know that explanation. So congratulations, Mr. Massey, on once again getting Amy's cow patty. So I guess we're down to me. My cow patty award this week goes to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, the DSCC, not to be confused with the DCCC. So the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee has decided to, in the primary, the Democratic primary in Kentucky, they have decided to endorse one of the candidates, come out with their support of one of the primary candidates. And for a Democratic organization related to the Democratic Party like that, to come out in a primary in favor of one candidate over the others, I find extremely disturbing. The way I heard it described was they're putting their finger on the scale. For Democratic committees, most Democratic committees, if you're talking about like county parties and stuff like that, and the state Democratic Party, they will not indicate a preference for a candidate in the primary over another candidate. They will provide equal access, equal support to what resources they have in the primary without showing a favorite. I think that's the way it should be.
I agree. That
way the people who are voting get to determine which candidate should win the primary.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the DSCC, Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, doing this is extremely disturbing. And they did it. This isn't the first time. They did it back in 2018 when they came out in favor of Jim Gray over Amy McGrath in the congressional race.
Yes.
Back in, was that 2018? Yeah. So, I mean, they've done this before. They have a history of doing this in Kentucky, and they need to stop it.
Well, they don't know what it's like for voters in Kentucky. They don't know Kentucky, you know. So, right, it should be the voters in Kentucky that make that determination and not some outside entity that doesn't know our state.
Right. And I don't think they should be throwing their 2 cents in a primary anyway. So the only time I could see them throwing in for a primary would be if there's a candidate that is running as a Democrat but doesn't really uphold Democratic ideals. Then I could see them saying, hey, this person's running as a Democrat, but they're not really upholding our ideals. So, sorry, Ann, you were trying to say something?
That's okay. Even then, even in that instance, I mean, that is not their job. Yes, recruiting candidates is part of their job. You know,
recruiting,
ensuring that candidates have the resources that they need to run is part of their job, and one that I might add they typically are not very successful at, which is a whole nother ball of wax, because we do have 9 candidates in this, 9 or 10 in this primary. You know, do all candidates have equal access? No. Do all candidates have, you know, equal ability to get those resources? No. And it's because of how, you know, how they are exerting their influence as opposed to, you know, recruiting a bench. And that's the way it should be.
Yep, I agree.
I have a real problem with this as well, but, you know, that's where groups like ours come in an attempt to, you know, give the voters a broader view and to allow other candidates an equal voice. And one of the, you know, pushes for our upcoming senatorial candidate forum. You know, Amy McGrath and her people have already confirmed. Charles Booker and his people have confirmed. Mike Breuer and his people have confirmed. Jimmy Osbrooks and his people have confirmed. And we may have a 5th candidate that joins the forum. That's what we need. We need to see candidates side by side who are talking about their vision for Kentucky, what they can do to help promote Kentucky in the Senate, because that is their job, is to represent the state. So let's get them side by side. Let's hear on different topics what their thoughts are, what their goals would be, what avenues they might take to, you know, push for Kentucky in these various areas. Let's not, you know, just select one arbitrarily and say, well, this person's going to give them all the money and the resources and let them suck up all the oxygen in the room and everybody else to fall off. That's how we lose quality candidates,
yep.
You know, and that's how people are, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for here, discouraged from running again or from even being involved. People start to look at each other and say, why should I be involved when the deck is already stacked against me?
Yeah.
You know, or I tried, but they didn't want to hear from me, so I'm not willing to make that attempt again. You know, and let's face it, we need a bench, not only here in Kentucky, but nationwide. We should be building that bench.
Absolutely.
So it has long-term consequences, that mushroom out.
Yep, I agree completely. And that's, you know, one of the things I get concerned about is I don't see the older Democratic politicians spending their time mentoring and helping the younger people in the party to hone their craft and to hone their campaigns and help them become more proficient, help building that bench. I just don't see a lot of the older members, the older politicians particularly, spending their time doing that. And that's really concerning.
You know, it feels like they almost have given up sometimes. It really hurts my feelings that they don't want to participate anymore. But we really need everybody on board to, like Ann said, build the bench. I mean, there's so many quality people in our state that would serve us so well, but are afraid to run because, you know, sometimes tactics can get pretty nasty in campaigns and people don't want to, you know, and if you don't have millions of dollars, then the playing field isn't really open to you very widely, you know. So, yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, definitely. That's another huge factor. I mean, the most popular guy in the town who gets along with everybody, regardless of what their party affiliation is, who knows all the issues that are related to them in their area, knows what the people need, knows what they want because they talk to them all the time, is the last person that can run a lot of the time for all of these reasons, whether it's financial or, you know, access to these resources, whatever it is, you know, they just get cut off at the knees, and the people lose. Regardless of party, it's the people who lose.
It's true.
You know, and so that's a strong argument for ending Citizens United, but that's a whole nother program.
So this is the part where I urge people that are listening to us to go and get involved in your county conventions and get on your executive committees in your counties and help us build the bench. Get involved in politics on the ground level, and that doesn't mean you have to run for office, but your voice is needed. We need more voices. People are a little disheartened here in Kentucky, I think, because we've lost a lot over the last decade or two and taken a lot of steps back. And when you're beaten down that hard, it's sometimes hard to get back up. So we need all of your help. So that's my little plug for that.
All right, so a little digression from our cow patties, but an important one. So anyway, those are our cow patties for this week. All right, so I guess let's talk about some of the stuff going on in the state legislature. We are in, we just finished up with day 28 of the General Assembly. And this weekend's President's Day, so there's no meetings on President's Day. And this coming Friday is the last day for bill requests, so we're getting to the end of the bill request period. So speaking of bills, there's been some interesting ones out there. Senate Bill 8. Let's talk a little bit about Senate Bill 8.
That's the school safety bill?
Yeah. Another unfunded mandate.
Yeah,
I still got to do those. I still got to do that sound effect for that. So this has been passed, and it's sitting on the governor's desk, waiting for his signature. I know there's a lot of groups pushing for him to veto this bill. So let's talk about this bill. On the surface, it sounds not that bad. On the surface, you say, you know, it's for armed resource officers armed with firearms, right. Specifically. It calls out firearms, so no swords. But school resource officers to be armed at all schools. It doesn't give any funding for it. It requires it. On the surface, it sounds great. But when you start looking at what happens in minority schools, schools that have a large minority population, something different starts happening when you have these armed resource officers in the school.
Right.
And it starts creating that school to prison pipeline and becomes very problematic. So this bill was really targeted at JCPS.
Jefferson County Public Schools. Right.
It was really written for them.
Right. I think our legislature has a problem with the Louisville area in general, and targeting them for legislation is one of their fun pastimes, I think.
Oh, yeah. They hate Jefferson County.
As a former resident, I can tell you it's true.
Anne's being strangely quiet.
Well, I'm agreeing with everything you guys are saying. I'm just nothing to add. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. So hopefully, hopefully this is one that will get vetoed by the governor.
Well, and I think people need to understand, why the why behind the push to ask him to veto it. Yes, the majority Republican legislature has, for lack of a better term, a hard-on for Jefferson County Public Schools, and they're doing everything they can to interfere. The dramatic change in policy coming out of the Republican Party, especially here in Kentucky, I'm not sure if it's the same everywhere, when it comes to the broad overview. Who remembers when it was, we want small government, we want local control, except for now, all of their actions, everything they do is the exact opposite. They want to be involved. They're going through the legislature to bypass the Kentucky Board of Education. They're totally disregarding the fact that the local school boards, Jefferson County Public in particular, has specifically voted to not have firearms in schools.
Right.
To make schools a safe haven for their kids by not having that presence in their schools. And their staff and educators and everybody have gone through, extensive training that, for example, up here in the north, some of the more prominent schools that are in these suburban areas that don't deal with the same types of issues, they don't go through all the kind of training in that these folks do, specific to the needs of their kids. And so they know how to diffuse situations that parents and teachers and administrators up here have never had to deal with. They deal with issues every day on a much bigger scale. I mean, come on. How many students do you think are homeless at Beechwood? How many kids do you think are hungry at Highlands?
Yeah.
Not to say that it's zero, but when you look at the totality of the numbers, it's staggering.
Yes.
And so, that's the exact reason for having these local school boards, is
Yes.
because they are better equipped to deal with their staff, their students, and the issues facing their communities that get brought into their schools. So let them decide, as opposed to making this across the board sweeping legislation that affects all schools. And the other thing that blows my mind, I'm just going to say it, they can't afford textbooks, they can't afford pencils, but now we got Glocks. I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah.
Who is going to pick up the cost for this?
Well, nobody.
This is another habit
The local
of
schools.
the Republican legislature the past 2 or 3 cycles. Continual streams of unfunded mandates, and then they're going to turn around and they're going to point at the governor and say, you didn't fund this, you didn't fund this. Well, you're the idiots that passed it knowing that we didn't have the funding. So we're to blame. I mean, it's just sad. It's really, it's sad. It's selfish, and the motivation is clear. So,
War on the poor.
I think he has to veto it and, challenge Damon Thayer and Stivers and Osborne. What's it worth to you? How much are you going to whip your majorities into a frenzy to override a veto is specifically directed at the minority populations of this state and specifically directed at JCPS?
Yep.
Because I think they got problems. I think they got bigger problems than doing something this stupid. I really do.
Well, it's a widespread, like you mentioned, it's a widespread attack by the Republican Party in Kentucky against local control, which they used to be all about, right? Less, like you said, less central government, stronger local control. They're also attacking the site-based the site-based councils at each of the local schools, trying to give that control back to the county. And there's bills like this that again try to take away that local control, which people fought really hard for that local control to be able to have a strong say in what happens in their local schools, in their personal community.
Right. So, cause there's so many different diverse communities in the state,
Mm-hmm.
there's no one size fits all.
Right. And even within a county.
Right.
I mean, every school,
Exactly.
individual school has its own,
Sure.
community and its own issues as well. So,
Yeah, I tried to explain that about Boone County. People talk about Boone County and it's, when people think of Boone County, all they think of is Florence. And I'm always talking about, well, okay, but then you go up towards the river and you've got lowland, the lowland area and the floodplain there where you've got all sorts of farms. And
Yes.
then you go out towards Rabbit Hash area where you get all sorts of wooded areas, really deep rural wooded areas. You get south in the county, it gets really super rural and stuff's really far apart. There's so many different parts to Boone County, and to say that, that somebody sitting down in Frankfort, all these people sitting down in Frankfort, that they all understand that diversity that happens and they can control what happens in the schools that serve all these different areas. It just isn't reasonable.
Right. I mean, demographics at Boone County High School is so different than Royal High School. I know as a substitute going to all these different schools, that, just even driving 5 miles up the road, can make a big difference. Where I live, there's $1 million homes everywhere. So that's a quite different demographic than, going to another school where, the mean income might be $40,000 a year.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, earlier, Amy, you mentioned the war on the poor. I think that transitions us nicely into House Bill 1. I don't know, this thing, it's an attack on food assistance and health care and all kinds of things that actually help people out. Anne, can you give us a little more detail on it?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm really, really, really disappointed because this bill actually has bipartisan support. In fact, one of the co-sponsors is Jeremy Jenkins, Democrat out of Louisville, who is the what is she now? Isn't she the House Majority Leader now with Rocky Atkins moving on?
Yeah, I think so.
Or House Minority Leader. Yeah, I'm really disappointed in that. Because this bill, 18 pages of crap about, public assistance. And in fact, that's the first line, an act relating to public assistance. So this covers SNAP benefits, which, food stamps, covers Medicaid and expanded Medicaid, with medical card, and it covers TANF, temporary assistance for needy families, which is cash benefit. Now, I can speak from experience because I'm somebody who has needed all of these various services in the past.
Mm-hmm.
The bureaucracy involved has always been a nightmare. This takes it and magnifies it a millionfold. And this bill goes so far as to dictate, what types of drinks you can buy and all, and it specifies things that are just like, well, duh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For example, there's lines and lines. This bill is 18 pages long, and there's things in here about, what they're trying to do is put everything on one card. For anybody that's been involved in social services, whether as a recipient or a worker or whatever, in the past, each thing was kept separate, and you had your vouchers or food stamps that were actual paper,
right?
That you used, and you had a separate, medical card that was like basically a state issued insurance card. And then if you were one of the extremely few people who qualified for cash assistance, then you got a monthly check sent to your house. So basically what they're trying to do is streamline all that and put everything on one card.
Okay.
And, can I understand that? To a certain extent. I get that. The problem is they're developing a monstrous bureaucracy that doesn't need to be there. And they're adding things into this bill that have previously been denied, whether voted down or deemed in the courts as unconstitutional, got added back into this bill because this is an all-in-one kitchen sink type of bill. And
right.
It's just crazy. I mean,
isn't there a provision in there about if you get convicted of a crime, you can be banned for life from ever getting assistance?
Yes, but I believe it's on and again, I'd have to do even a deeper dive. But
right.
It has provisions that, like, first offense, you lose it for a month. Second offense, you lose it for 3 months. Third offense, you're permanently disqualified for various infractions. But go so far as that you can't buy alcohol. Well, you've never been able to do that. You can't buy cigarettes with it. Well, you've never been able to do that, or any tobacco product. Can't buy vape products. Can't use it at a casino. Okay, first off, we have no casinos in Kentucky.
Right.
I really don't see a lot of people crossing state lines to use their Kentucky-issued, EBT card to hit the slot machine. Who thinks of this shit?
It's in anticipation.
Excuse my language, but I'm like, an establishment that provides adult-oriented entertainment. Yeah, because the local strip joint is going to take your EBT card. What? The amount of time, energy, and money spent putting together this kind of garbage is ridiculous. You want to know where government waste is? It's here.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Right. It's an unnecessary burden on the Department of Health. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's a war on the poor. That's what it is.
It is a war on the poor. And then you go deeper, and it specifies, that they are only allowed to use a certain percentage of whatever they receive in nutritional assistance to purchase specific products. For example, they can't use more than 25% of their benefits for soft drinks, energy drinks, things of that nature. Okay. Do I see the intent? Yes. But as we all know, intent doesn't matter as much as outcome. And that's in your choice of words in any situation. You can have all the best intentions in the world, but how that message is received and what the consequences are from doing something matter much more. So I can see the intent, but the fact of the matter is none of this is based in scientific fact. Statistically, it has been proven that, people who use these programs do not, contrary to popular rhetoric, do not buy pop at a higher level than anybody else. They don't buy any of these products at a higher level than anybody else. So now they want every grocery
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
To implement a system that monitors anybody that uses a card that is able to break down their purchases to a percentage of these different things and report that back to the candidate. And it's just like, what are we doing here? Why are we going to this level?
It's punishing people for needing help.
Right. And when you talk about fraud, It's been well debunked myth that there's all of this fraud in these systems going on. There's actually, if I'm not mistaken, and I want to be correct here, Medicare and Medicaid are some of the best run systems that we have in this country. There's less than like 1% fraud. When you add in all social service nets, such as the EBT card and SNAP benefits and that, it only goes up to like 3%. We have more fraud sitting in the White House than we have of all the millions of people that need this help. So why here in Kentucky, when we know what the problems are, when we have counties that don't have proper, clean drinking water or bathing water or cooking water or any, they just don't have good water. When we have, all this flooding going on, when we have, school buildings that are falling apart, when we can't afford textbooks for our kids. But please, let's waste as much time, energy, and money as possible to punish the least among us and to write this crap that we don't need. We just don't need it.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to...
And there's no demonstrable proof that we need it. But what really scares me is it also lays out the case, and it specifically states in here that the Attorney General is empowered to take legal action against a state agency if they don't implement this. What are we trying? I mean, we've all seen the authoritarianism on a federal level. Now they're trying to bring it to the state of Kentucky and enact it on a state level. And the fact that this has bipartisan support, it just blows me away, blows my mind. Makes me wonder what the original thought was and how many concessions were made and where they were made. What was the original intent of this bill?
Right.
Because this is garbage. This is just absolute garbage. And it's a damn shame. It really
Call
is.
your legislators, folks.
Yeah, it's really kind of mind-boggling, the things this does. It takes away it brings back the work requirement issue, which was just overturned.
Yes.
But
it brings back the work requirement.
Right, but here's the thing, and here's how they're going to get around that, because I really kind of delved into this.
Mm-hmm.
It's sneaky, but it's not a work requirement now. It's a participation in these, like educational type sessions requirement. 80 hours a month. Now, please explain to me how somebody is going to go out and apply for a job and go to interviews and try to get back on their feet. Well, they also have to 80 hours a month, which is 20 hours a week, participate in these ridiculous things in order to keep the services that they have.
And who's going to pay for that?
Right. And that's the other thing. Here we have yet another unfunded mandate. They are expecting the cabinet to enact all of these this new bureaucracy. They're expecting to get buy-in from every grocery store in the state. It's not just grocery stores. Any place that accepts an EBT card, they're expecting to, add things to their machines to be able to break down purchases that are made. There's over 300,000 items available on this card. And you seriously expect every gas station, every grocery store, every corner market, everybody to do this. This is just mind-boggling to me. You can't tell me that this bill in any way saves money to the level that it's going to cost.
Yeah, I was going to say it costs more money because of the added administrative overhead.
Right. Any savings is going to be eaten up in administrative costs. Absolutely. I'd like to see a budget breakdown of that,
Well, saw what happened the last 4 years. I mean, under Bevin's administration, the things that were going on at the Cabinet and Family Services was just crazy. There were so many things that were just not getting done at all. There were things that people didn't know how to do. There were things that never got enacted because they couldn't figure out how to do them. So after 4 years of all that garbage, and now Andy Beshear gets elected, and he comes in and he's like, okay, we're going to put a stop to all this madness, and we're going to go back to the Medicaid expansion, which was a beautiful thing and needed to be done. But now it's like they just have this compunction. They, you enacted something new. We gotta go in and pay. Do a bunch of oversight.
Let's hurt some poor people.
When have their bills ever been effective?
Yeah.
It's not about being effective. It's about punishing people.
Yeah, it all goes back to this.
Faith.
It all goes back to this idea of, somebody else is getting something for free that I'm not getting, so nobody else should get something that I'm not getting, regardless of my circumstance or my background or anything else. Nobody should get anything for free. And it's not even for free, but
it's a lack of empathy to the core of it.
There you go. That's a great way to put it. It's a lack of empathy. It really is.
And it's just over, I don't know. I mean, and playing into the old stereotypes and the old mess. And I think I've said this at least once on another one of these that we did, but it bears repeating over and over and over again until it sinks in. I get so tired of hearing people say things like, when you hear them out in the parking lot or after they pay for their groceries and they're looking over their bill or whatever as they're standing in an atrium of a grocery store before they go out to their car, where if they were just behind somebody or beside somebody that was paying with, an EBT card or food stamps of the past, and, that person drives a better car than I do, or that person is eating lobster and steak and everything, or how come all the poor people are fat, and blah, blah, blah. Let's break that right now, because the fact of the matter is the healthy foods are the most expensive foods.
Yep, absolutely.
And when you are trying to stretch minimal dollars to cover maximum people, you have no choice but to buy the less healthy foods to feed everyone. And it's those less healthy foods that cause people to gain weight.
Yep.
It's not a choice that they want to have to make. It's done out of a need.
Right.
They have to do it to cover everybody. I mean, good God, if I could afford to go to the grocery store and eat steak and asparagus every night, I'd do it. I can't afford to eat like that. And
That's
if
some steak
you
for
think
you,
that somebody on food stamps is getting some exorbitant amount of money to feed a tiny family and that's how they're eating, I wish every person in the country had to spend 1 month on public assistance where all they got was food stamps and a medical card and the dollar amount to cover their entire family for 1 month, and they weren't allowed to use any other resources. 1 month, and they'd all be crying.
Yeah, I think
because they have no clue what reality is.
I think we should do that. With all the legislators should have to do that for 1 month. They should have to live on the amount of money that the average food stamp recipient has to live on for the month to feed their entire family. Follow the same rules.
Absolutely.
And you don't get to live off your pantry. We're going to lock up your pantry. You have to live on, this.
I have. So I know how it would be. Also, I think the legislators could look at this in a different way. I mean, what you were saying, Ann, about the stuff that's cheap is what people get.
Right.
And it's not good for you for the most part. Why don't they work with local farmers markets and give them vouchers to use at the farmers market and promote those healthy
Right.
foods and help our farmers.
And that's
Yeah.
part of, so the other thing this bill does is it makes it harder for them to get cash. They can't get cash at the grocery store. They have to actually go to a bank ATM to get cash. Well, out of I was just looking up some statistics when we were getting ready for this show, and out of the Kentuckians that make less than $30,000 a year, 12% of them are unbanked. They
Right.
don't have a bank. So that's 12%
Right.
of Kentuckians who make less than $30,000 a year have no bank. Yet here is a bill that is designed to take care of food stamp abuse or fraud, which there is less than 1% of.
Right.
So
It's an attack.
yeah,
Well, and think about this too. I mean, you have people who, and let's face it, we're going to talk about the stereotypes here. The stereotype that everybody envisions whenever you bring up these kinds of programs, and you can't tell me it's not true. They picture a single mom with 10 kids hanging off of her, sitting on the couch eating bonbons, and that nothing could be further from the truth. The fact of the matter is the vast majority of people who receive any kind of social services are already working. It's that the jobs that are available to them pay so little that they still qualify for benefits. That's
Yep.
pathetic.
exactly.
That's number one. Number two, we now live in an age where a large segment of our Gen X population is either taking care of kids or taking care of parents or both. And so they can receive benefits. They can be the person designated to care for these things on behalf of their parents. Well, what if you access that money to, pay the rent, for God's sake?
Yeah.
And you're limiting their access to the money that you've already told them they're entitled to get. It just, this boggles my mind. This absolutely boggles my mind. I want proof. I want statistical proof that anything in here is necessary at all. If your goal is to bring down the cost, then you look at the system that you have and you make cuts and changes as it exists. You don't generate an entire new bureaucracy with a whole bunch of new punitive damages to people trying to access the help that they need. That's not the way to do it.
It reminds me, and maybe a little bit of a stretch here, but it reminds me of when you were in school and, every now and then you'd get this teacher that instead of punishing the one or two students that were acting up, they would punish the entire class.
Right.
Mr. Anderson.
Right? I mean, that's what this is. Okay, if there's 1% fraud, then by all means, let's identify the 1% fraud and let's put in safeguards for those 1% fraud cases that make sense. But let's not punish the entire class because just a couple of people are causing problems.
Absolutely. And here's another thing, because this is what this kind of stuff does, right? And it is their ultimate goal in terms of cutting costs, is people see all this bureaucracy and they don't even bother to ask for help. And so what does that generate? Well, guess what, folks? Kentucky now tops the nation. We have over 600,000 homeless kids in this state. But let's punish anybody who actually is brave enough to come and ask for help. We have an exploding number of hungry kids in this state. When you punish the adults, you punish the kids.
Yep.
They're the ones who ultimately suffer.
Yep.
So while you save up and get your steak dinner, these kids are eating ramen noodles every night because that's all the benefits that they get that can cover. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's it's damaging, it's punitive, and in a state like Kentucky, there isn't any legislator from any party that should be signing on to this kind of crap.
Agreed. Call your legislators.
Absolutely. Call your legislators. Let them know what you think, especially on House Bill 1. Senate Bill
We're
8.
against House Bill 1.
Yep.
If you can't tell.
Definitely. So anyway, there's a lot more going on in the State House, but I think that's all we have time to talk about tonight. So we'll kind of leave it there for now. So that looks like that's going to about wrap it up for this week's Left in Kentucky. Before we sign off here, I do want to talk about a few things we have coming up. Like I mentioned earlier, we're in the midst of the General Assembly, and Friday the 21st is the last day for bill responses. And then the 2nd and 3rd of March are the last days for new bills. Of course, like we've seen in the past, that doesn't prevent them from ripping out the language and putting whatever they want in a bill that's already been introduced. So, yay for that.
I predict that will happen at least once.
Yeah. On Thursday, March 5th.
Be there or be square.
We have our Senate Forum that will be at Southgate House Revival. Doors open at 5:30, and the forum starts at 6:30. You can get tickets through Eventbrite or through our Facebook page, which has the event up and has a link to the Eventbrite. The tickets are free. Yay, that's the good news. Well, we are recommending that you do get tickets because we anticipate that this will be close to, if not completely sold out. So highly recommend that you get your tickets beforehand for that. We will have, it'll be moderated by Ryland Barton from the Kentucky Public Radio. I was looking forward to that. And this is not a debate. It is a forum. So the attendees, which at this point are attendees that have confirmed, are Amy McGrath, Mike Breuer, Charles Booker, and Jimmy Osbrooks. And we are talking, we may have a 5th candidate there. But they will be asked to answer a series of questions and provide us what they propose to do about those things, what their positions are. And Ryland has said that he will hold them to that. So he's not going to try to let them get by with non-answers.
So are we going to have a live stream of that, Roberto?
Yes. We will also be having a live stream. So if you cannot attend in person, there will be a live stream on our, we'll be streaming it on our YouTube channel. We'll put the link on Facebook as well. But we'll be streaming it through our YouTube channel, and you can watch it there. I'll also say that on our YouTube channel, you can also find this podcast.
You can.
So there's no pictures. It's just the thing that shows the sound.
I know, and I got my Mardi Gras beads
on. But you can watch it on there. But we will be streaming the March 5th event, live streaming that. So we're definitely looking forward to that. It should be really interesting. Give these candidates a chance to tell us what their positions are and how they're going to fix some of the issues that we're seeing.
It's going to be better than a bathtub of beans.
Yes. Amy's obsessed with bathtubs full of beans today for some reason. I think I just want
some beans.
I think that may be it. Coming up on the podcast, we'll be having some interviews coming up. We'll be talking with a couple of the congressional candidates, Alexander Owensby and Shannon Fabert. We'll have them coming up. We also have scheduled Charles Booker and Mike Breuer on the podcast, so we look forward to hearing from them. And then on the May, I guess what would be the May 12th podcast, right before the primary. It's our last podcast before the May 19th primary. We'll have Ryan Saltzman on. He's a political scientist, political science professor at Northern Kentucky University. So we're very excited to have him on, and we'll be talking about the primary and giving you analysis and getting Ryan's take on it. So looking forward to that. Am I missing anything, guys?
Don't think so.
I don't think so.
All righty. That's a lot. That's a lot going on. So stay tuned. Tell all your friends about the podcast and make sure you're
Thanks,
downloading.
honey, for listening.
Yes. Thanks, honey, for listening. Ian, honey.
He told me today, he's like, this is where I get my information about what's going on in Kentucky. Your podcast is my main source of information. So hopefully you guys are out there using it too.
Yep.
Spread the word, please.
Yep. Spread the word. Spread the word.
Absolutely.
If there's something that you'd like us to cover, you're welcome to email us, drop us a message, like us on your favorite podcast app.
Come by my house,
Come by Amy's house. Everybody knows where Amy lives. Rocky will greet you very warmly. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. This is Roberto Henriquez.
Amy Ferguson. And
Ann Dickerson.
And we'll be back next week. Left in Kentucky, the podcast of Indivisible Northern Kentucky.